Hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rux, I'm a Western Tropical Astrologer, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon in Aries. This is coming up on the 17th of October at 11:26 GMT time at 24 degrees 34 minutes of Aries. So if you have in your natal chart planets, angles, or important points around 24 degrees of cardinal signs, you are going to feel this full moon the most. Let us recap what the cardinal signs are. Aries, Libra, and Cancer, Capricorn. Now, I am going to be very straightforward, folks, because we are talking about an astrological event in the sign of Aries. This is not my favorite event of the month, astrologically speaking. I would actually say it's one of my least favorites. Why? Because this full moon is happening in conjunction with Chiron, the wounded healer. So it is activating some sort of a wound. It is activating some sort of a source of suffering, you could say. It's also forming a tense aspect with Mars in Cancer, which is also the ruler of this lunation. Obviously, because Mars rules over Aries. So why is this not my favorite astrological event? Let me explain. It can be a very confrontational time. It can be a very angry full moon, like literally angry. Essentially, people might be very irritated, very frustrated. There is a possibility that some people might lash out. There is a possibility that maybe the lashing out, I'm not saying that it's ever justified, but potentially it has been delayed in some shape or form. So maybe you've accumulated a lot of frustration over time, and all of a sudden at the time of the full moon, you're like, wham, bam. So a very inflammatory full moon, I'd say both figuratively as well as literally. So there is a very, very, very high chance of confrontations, of arguments, of conflicts. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's a lot of people out there very eager to enter into a confrontation. Now, of course, there are exceptions to everything. And conflict might actually be very mandated this time. So you might be well in your right to get angry at this time. You might be well within your right to be upset. This is also potentially a very defensive full moon. So we might feel like we need to stand up and defend something that is very, very important to us, something that we have a great deal of emotional attachment to. We may have to stand up and defend our family. We may feel like we have to stand up and defend our roots. We may feel like we have to stand up and defend our history. There's also a possibility, however, that we may need to stand up and defend ourselves against potentially someone who we consider to be family. There is a chance of arguments at home. There is a chance of getting angry with family members. At the same time, I think it's very useful to take a little bit of a step back and ask ourselves, why am I so angry? Has a boundary been crossed too many times, and now it's finally the moment when I kind of like blow up and I say no? Am I angry at a specific event, or do I really feel like tension has been building up inside of me, and once again, all of a sudden I feel like lashing out? So these are some really good questions to ask ourselves. As I said, this can be a very defensive and protective full moon as well, because it is ruled by Mars in Cancer. I think this is probably one of the number one kind of like cliche images that are brought up when we talk about the uplifting expressions of Mars in Cancer, the more beneficial expressions of Mars in Cancer. I'm almost imagining a mother defending her children. So it could be a time when we feel like we have to defend our own. There's also a possibility of reckless action at the time of this full moon. So I would recommend, generally, the remedy to a lot of Mars energy, and we do have a lot of Mars energy in the sky at the time of this lunation. The remedy is a little bit more Saturn, a little bit more caution, a little bit more restraint, a little bit more prudence, or the other remedy could be more Venusian. So asking ourselves, why am I really so angry? Do I not feel loved? Do I feel like maybe something that I love a great deal has been attacked? A few things to reflect upon. This full moon can also put the spotlight on competitions, on, at a mundane level, on conflicts. I am thinking of wars possibly. A fight might come to some sort of a culminating point at the time of this full moon. It's a very action-packed full moon, but again, I really, really, really want to give a piece of advice. And again, please feel free to take it or leave it. You obviously have free will to decide how you respond to the energies unfolding both outside of you as well as inside of you. I would advise against impulsive action unless you literally feel threatened. And there could be some people that may feel threatened. I'm not necessarily referring to physical threats, although sometimes, I mean, that is a reality of life. Sometimes these things do happen. But if you feel threatened, I would really ask myself, am I under attack? Am I actually in danger? Or am I responding from a place of maybe fear or insecurity or built up, kind of like pent up frustration over time? A competition or a fight could come to a culminating point because this is a full moon after all. Full moons do bring outcomes, they do bring results, they do bring to our attention the results of the seeds that we have sown in the past. It can also be a very courageous full moon, I'd say. So we might see displays of courage, of boldness. I would also ask myself if I were in any sort of like conflict or opposition, or if I were experiencing opposition, I apologize. If I were in a place where I felt like I had to defend myself, what is the best way to win? Aries is a very competitive sign, but there are multiple ways in which we can win something. Sometimes we have more to lose if we react very impulsively. Sometimes we win by taking a bit of a step back. We win by not engaging in the conflict. We win by being forgiving, by going with the flow, by kind of like taking things into our own stride. Sometimes we also win by not putting up too much resistance against something that is coming towards us anyway. So basically accept whatever is coming if you realize that you can't fight it, that you can't kind of like overcome it with force, with strength. Maybe the best tactic, again, because this is about winning, maybe the best tactic for survival, this full moon is likely to put the spotlight on survival. Maybe the best tactic for survival is to just kind of like go with the flow, maybe to potentially let go of a specific fight, to let go of something maybe that we felt like we had to like really stand up for or defend. This one also puts the spotlight on relationships. Now, it's activating the Aries Libra axis, which is the axis of me versus the other. Individuality versus collaboration. I'm gonna say to focus on the self versus diplomacy and tact and meeting other people halfway. I believe that a lot of people are going to be angry with someone in their lives. So if you want to cut them loose, I mean, you are absolutely well within your right. There is a possibility that there's going to be people saying, you know what, I don't want to work with this, I don't know, business partner anymore. However, I would really, I repeat, once again, slow down a little bit and really ask myself, is this the best tactic to bring this partnership to a close? Or do I have more to lose if I act impulsively? Maybe there's a better way. Just saying, just a few things to, once again, to reflect upon. People are going to have a really short fuse at the time of this full moon. So once again, that's why it's not my favorite. It's not a disastrous astrological event, but that is one of the reasons why this is not my favorite event of the month. Saying that, Mars, the ruler of the full moon, is in a nice aspect. It's going to be in a nice aspect. It's going to trine Neptune. It's a supportive aspect. Neptune and Pisces. Neptune is associated with dissolving boundaries, forgiveness, acceptance, surrendering, letting go. Which is why I said, listen, if there's any way in which you can win this fight, or maybe you can just kind of like gain more by walking away from this fight, or by kind of like conceding a little bit of like a bit of a win, even if it's a partial one, to the adversary. Yeah, just think about it. Just think about it, folks. Now, of course, we're going to go into the update for each of the 12 zodiac signs, as usual. Before we do that, I do have a few things that I would like to share. First and foremost, especially for those of you who are new to my channel, I am a full-time consulting astrologer. I work with clients on a day-to-day basis, and if you want to work with me, if you want to book a personal consultation with me, you can find me on my website, writteninthestars-astrology.com. That is writteninthestars-astrology.com. It's also in the pinned comment and in the description box of this video. If you are a new client, once again, the 1 hour 15-minute Zoom consultation option is the one to go for. If you're an existing client, you know that you have also other options, such as the year ahead forecast, which a lot of people actually book around their birthday so that they can prepare in order to make the most of what's coming up in their next birthday year. But again, that's not mandatory. You can basically book the 1 hour year ahead forecast at any point throughout the year. You can also book the 30 minutes follow-up consultation if you have more specific questions, or if you want to dive into one particular sector that is of interest, such as relocation astrology. We use astrocartography to see how your chart gets activated in a different place if you want to move or if you want to travel somewhere. We can also look at potentially some of the most fulfilling places to live in, or where you can meet, let's say, certain types of energies that can be supportive, maybe when it comes to your career, or maybe when it comes to relationships, for example. So that's just one example of the type of topic that we can address in the 30 minutes follow-up consultation. And of course, if you're new here and you're thinking, Rex, but I want to do astrocartography with you, I want to do relocation astrology, I want to understand more of what would make me kind of like happy in terms of my home and living situation, what do I need to feel fulfilled, to feel happy in this space or in any other sector of your life, just know that the 1 hour 15-minute Zoom consultation for first-time clients is completely customizable to your needs. So we can look at the natal chart, we can look at the year ahead, we can analyze specific sectors of your life from an astrological perspective, such as career, relationships, and so on. I am genuinely, firmly of the belief that astrology is a tool that can improve our lives tremendously. Why? Because it helps us understand ourselves better, because it helps us reconnect with our soul's intentions, because it helps us in very kind of like practical ways from a tactical perspective. When it comes to making the most of specific sectors of our life. For example, it can indicate how we are likely to make the most amount of money in this lifetime, what sort of resources, talents we need to lean into, what sort of resources maybe we need to develop further so that we can fulfill our prosperity potential. So using the natal chart, it's almost like you have a map as to how you can navigate to your full potential. Basically any area of your life, whether that's finances, health, relationships, you name it. Let's say, I don't know, that you don't have motivation to achieve your goals. We need to look at your sun, we need to look at your Mars, we need to look at whatever might be holding you back. And basically we can devise together tactics, we can brainstorm as to how you can approach specific areas in order for you to accomplish your goals in a manner that works for you. I know that in this day and age, self-development is very popular, and I am a big fan of it. But the problem with many self-development books, courses, tools, you name it, the problem, I believe, is that a lot of these people who are selling these tools or books and so on, they're basically preaching a method and saying, okay, this is it. One size fits all. This is the secret. But the reality is, one size does not fit all. Just because one specific set of tactics or one way of approaching things has worked for a person doesn't mean it's going to work for the person next to them. It doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. That's why astrology is so powerful, because it can help you personalize how you go about achieving your full potential, I'd say, and you realize, okay, this is what works for me, this is what motivates me, this is what is holding me back, this is my value system, these are my beliefs, this is my subconscious programming, these are my emotional needs that if I don't fulfill, then they're gonna hold me back from being the best version of myself, and so on. So enough of that. I mean, I could probably sit here and sing the praises of astrology for a very long time, but alas, we only have a limited amount of time. So once again, if you want to work with me, written in the stars-astrology.com, straight to the services section is where you can purchase a consultation with me. And just so you know, there is a bit of a waiting time, around a month to a month and a half. I am currently taking bookings for November when I am filming this video. Now let's go back to the astrology of the full moon in Aries. As I said, you're going to feel this the most if you have planets around 24 degrees, planets or angles, or for example, the North Node, so important points around 24 degrees of cardinal signs. Who are the people who are going to feel this full moon, but maybe not feel it as, how should I say, in such an inflammatory manner? Maybe they're gonna feel like it's actually quite helpful in some shape or form, like it's putting the spotlight on a result that you're potentially quite happy with. Those of you who have planets or angles around 24 degrees of the following: Aquarius, Gemini, Leo, and Sagittarius. So you might actually, even though it's as I said, quite a belligerent full moon, you might actually feel like whatever is coming to the surface, you're quite happy with it, you can work with it, you can run with it, and somehow it plays out in your favor. Now, let's go into the update for each of the 12 zodiac signs, and especially if you're new here, I want to remind you that these general forecasts, I repeat, this is a general forecast, it's not a personal forecast, because sometimes people say, oh, but like this doesn't resonate. Well, yes, because it is a general forecast, so you cannot expect a general horoscope to capture the entire essence of your natal chart for in-depth, personalized, accurate as humanly possible forecasts. You need to get a personal reading with an astrologer, such as myself, just saying. So if you're new here, please listen to the update for your ascendant, for your rising sign, because that is how these general forecasts are built. If you don't know your rising sign, then of course you can listen to the update of your sun sign, but I strongly recommend actually, that you find out what your rising sign is, what your ascendant is. For that, you need your date, time, and place of birth, and you can generate your natal chart for free online on sites such as astro-seek.com or astro.com. They are free, super easy, but make sure that you have the correct time of birth. So I would double check with your parents. Now, without further ado, let us dive right in. And of course, we're going to start off with the one and only Aries. My dear, dear, dear Aries, Aries suns and Aries risings. What is going on at the time of this full moon? Well, it is a full moon that's putting the spotlight on you, your path in life, how you feel in your body, your health, but also it is putting the spotlight on your relationship with either, I'm gonna say, a family member or with a romantic partner. Or this could also be putting the spotlight on the relationship with someone who you've been working together with on a matter connected with home, family life, and private life. So this full moon is potentially going to bring some sort of a conflict with one of these people, either a parent or a partner or generally a family member. What are you angry about? Well, you seem to feel angry about something from the past, maybe something that has hurt you in the past. You seem to feel potentially really irritated with something that's happening at home. Maybe this person is not respecting your wishes at home, or maybe this person is making you feel somehow kind of like threatened at home. There's also a possibility that you may feel like you have to defend a parent, a family member in general, or yeah, just like a significant other. Maybe it feels like they are kind of like cornered somehow, and you need to stand up and defend them and protect them in some shape or form. But the most possible scenario, and I say scenario because astrology is only symbolically and archetypally predictive and descriptive. It's not predictive of exact material manifestation. The most likely scenario that I see unfolding is you having a little bit of a row, you entering into an argument, into a conflict with someone that you maybe live with, or with someone over a matter connected with home, family, or real estate. I do believe you may feel somehow hurt. I do believe you may feel somehow like you could not maybe express your wants, your will, your desires, what's important to you in the past, maybe in connection with this person, and now you could be lashing out, and you could be like extra confrontational and extra angry, and potentially you might have a good cry. There's a possibility that this person might have a good cry also. Now, I want to really stress out that Mars, the ruler of this full moon, is in a nice aspect to Neptune. Let's put it this way. I do believe that you can actually enter a much more fulfilling chapter when it comes to your relationship and interaction with this person that you are angry with at this point in time. But it does feel like you have to forgive and release something maybe that potentially caused suffering and hurt in the past. There's also a possibility that around this time, you might realize, listen, I can't live with a certain person anymore. Let's say maybe you have roommates, right? And you get like really worked up over something that they do. And you realize, listen, this is who they are. So I can get upset. It's not going to change who they are. So I might as well find a way to let go. And you might let go of your existing living situation, or I don't know, if you're the one in charge in the home, you might announce them that you want them to exit the home, I'd say. One thing that I would recommend generally is to be a little bit careful when it comes to your physical health around this time, because you do seem to be in a very kind of like inflammatory state somehow. Maybe you are overworking yourself, maybe you're stressing yourself out, maybe you are challenging yourself too much, and also holding on to anger could potentially have negative effects upon your physical body. Now, of course, this is not medical advice. You are completely responsible for your medical and health-related decisions, but I'm just going to put it out there. What is healthier? To kind of like hold it in, or to say, listen, this is bothering me? I mean, I'm going to let you be the judge of that, Aries. My dear Taurus, Taurus suns and Taurus risings, 17th of October, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This full moon in Aries activates your 12th house, 6th house axis. And it is squaring Mars in the 3rd house. Now, I believe you might get angry with someone at work. There is a very high chance you might get angry with someone at work. There's also a possibility that you might get into a conflict. not just at work, but you might get into a conflict potentially on the road. There is a chance you might experience frustration, potentially like anger or tension on the road, especially if you are in a rush. Now, there is a possibility that someone else could be in a rush, and I am just gonna say it. They might do things on the road that make you feel really, really, really irritated. There is a chance that something might happen. There could be an unexpected event on the road, an incident that prevents you from getting to work in time. I am gonna say it. You might also experience some car trouble. That's a possibility. Something could malfunction, or it could kind of like get overheated, and it might need to be replaced. You might be really annoyed. Just putting it out there. My recommendation is potentially to just kind of like accept whatever's going on, whatever maybe needs to be replaced. Maybe if there's anything kind of like blocking your path, blocking blocking the street and preventing you from getting into work in time, I would kind of like try to like let it go and find an alternative route. Now, if you are having a conflict at work, you could also be having a conflict potentially with a sibling, a cousin, a neighbor, or a health practitioner. There is a possibility that you might be overreacting a little bit, because they might have struck a sensitive chord. Once again, maybe giving yourself permission to be angry, but also realizing that it's not necessarily this person who has hurt you. It's maybe something that you've kind of like been sitting on for a long time. It could help you diffuse the conflict. And I would also ask myself, am I going to have to work with this person moving forward? Am I going to have to like speak to this person moving forward? Because if the answer is yes, then you may want to employ a little bit of Neptunian forgiveness and just like not escalate things further. That's just the way that I see it. There is a possibility that you could experience a little bit of like health inflammation as well, my dear Taurus, especially if you've been neglecting something, if it's kind of like been building up, maybe in the background, and now you might need to address it. However, it does feel like you have maybe like a friend or like a colleague or a sibling or someone close to you who is very friendly towards you, who can help you kind of like deal with this matter, who can maybe help you find a solution really quickly for this issue. Gemini suns and Gemini risings. 17th of October, active 3 days before, 3 days after, my dear Geminis. This full moon in Aries activates your 11th house, 5th house axis, and it is squaring Mars in the 2nd house. I feel like there is a possibility that you might be having a little bit of a confrontation, potentially one that could escalate. You might be having a little bit of a confrontation, maybe, or an argument with a friend or a romantic partner or a child over, if you have children, over financial matters. It feels like the way that you see maybe a matter connected with finances and expenses is not really aligned with the way that this person has been looking at it. There is also a possibility that if you've been waiting on any sort of like payment to make its way to you, maybe from the work that you've been doing in conjunction with a group of people, with a community of people, something about the payment or something about maybe the way that it's being handled gets you really upset and irritated. If you're experiencing any sort of like payment or financial kind of like problems around this time, I would maybe kind of like try to find my center, try to calm down, try to allow things to kind of like go with the flow a little bit, because you do seem to have a lot of support in the workspace and the professional space from those in positions of power, from colleagues also at work, from bosses. So if there's any issue, it's gonna be solved. So there's no point in getting like super worked up. Now, the other potential issue that might come up at the time of this full moon is connected with a friendship. So you might realize that you are clashing with a friend over different kind of like values. So you have a set of values that don't necessarily align with this friend's values, or the other way around. There's also possibility that at this time you may decide to potentially leave a community or an organization because you realize that their value system, once again, is not aligned with yours, or you may feel like you're not as valued and appreciated as you expected to be within this community. Now, one massive recommendation, I have mentioned this at the very beginning of the video, is to not act irrationally and impulsively. So to really kind of like take a little bit of time before reacting impulsively and saying, you know what, I am getting rid of my membership, because this membership could actually help you in your professional life moving forward. So just saying, just making you aware of some of these things. For those of you who have kids, you might also decide to stop sending your child to some sort of like group type of activity. I don't know, maybe a sport, a game, or something like that. Either because you are angry with the way that your kid has been treated, or maybe because this is too expensive. Cancerians, Cancer suns and Cancer risings. This full moon in Aries activates your house of career, profession, public status, public reputation, the way that you contribute to society. However, it also activates not just that, it activates your private life and also the parental axis, we call it. It looks like you're reaching some sort of a culminating point in your career. Many of you might be reaching that. You could be reaching a little bit of a crossroads in which you kind of like need to decide the direction that you're going to be taking. You may be very driven and motivated to move forward. At the same time, you might also be in a rush to move forward career-wise, maybe to start off something new, and you might realize, I am like really kind of like impatient. Like, you seem to be quite impatient at the time of this full moon. I am really impatient and I want to push this forward, and it doesn't really seem to work out. So my recommendation would be to chill a little bit, to catch your breath, and to realize that there are certain things that are not necessarily within your control that you can kind of like push for and move by the sheer force of your willpower. You just have to like go with the flow and allow things to unfold. And actually that attitude seems to work wonders, and it seems to help you achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve in the professional space. There's also a possibility that you might feel angry or attacked by a boss, a parent, a family member, or someone in a position of power. This might get you really angry. This might get you in a very kind of like confrontational mood. You might actually be quite irritated in general in the interactions that you have with these kinds of people. So if you feel like you're, I don't know, gonna lash out at your mom, I'm not saying that you have to, but if you feel like that, I would really take a bit of a step back and ask myself, am I in a funk? Am I in a mood because it's my mom annoying me, or am I in a funk because I'm like really eager to get something out the door? I have a lot on my plate. I want to go, 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 go. I'm very driven and motivated, and things are not moving at the pace that I would want them to move. Possible. You might also feel like you have to defend yourself in a public setup. That's a possibility. Now, remember that sometimes the best defense is no defense. The best way to deflect an attack is to allow it to kind of like just diffuse in the ether. No response sometimes is the best response. Sometimes the more you explain yourselves, Cancerians, the worse a situation can get. No action might actually be the best action at the time of this full moon. If you do feel like, I don't know, your reputation is somehow like in the spotlight, but not necessarily for the best of reasons. And last but not least, you might take a little bit of a decision around this time as to what you're going to do next career-wise. You might have had enough about time of something that you've, I don't know, been kind of like keen on changing for quite a while professionally, and now it's like, okay, come on. Let's do this. Let's make this happen. You seem to be powered by really strong beliefs in a vision and a dream and in some sort of a goal for the future. And you also seem to be in a very creative mood, Cancerian. So I'd say if you've been postponing any sort of like significant action connected with your career, it could be the time. It could be the time to act. Leos. Leo suns and Leo risings. This full moon on the 17th of October, active 3 days before, 3 days after, is activating your third house, 9th house axis, and it is squaring Mars in the 12th house. So, I'm like, okay, let me slow down. What could get you angry? Because I did say this is a confrontational and potentially angry full moon. You could get angry over something connected with legal matters, maybe connected with traveling, maybe connected with courts of law, maybe connected with your education. You could also get angry with your in-laws if you are married, if you have in-laws. You could also get angry with a teacher, a guide, a mentor. Why? It could have something to do maybe with the way that they talk to you. It could have something to do with maybe you feeling like your feelings and your emotions and your needs are not taken into account. Buried feelings and needs and emotions seem to be a little bit of a theme at the time of this full moon. So if you do feel really irritated with someone, I would ask myself, okay, have I made it clear? Have I communicated super clearly to this person what my needs are and what I'm going through? Because if not, you can't really expect them to, I don't know, like walk on eggshells around you. There is a possibility that you might also get some sort of an answer, some sort of a result that you're not necessarily super happy with when it comes to an educational matter, a legal matter, or when it comes to a matter connected with foreign lands and foreign countries. There is a chance that you may have the opportunity to like redo things, to reapply. I don't know, if you're waiting for your visa and you hear that the response isn't a positive one, you could reapply, and there is a chance of resolution when Mars goes retrograde in Cancer, and it's going to go retrograde in Leo as well at the end of this year and beginning of 2025. So this is not the end. Let's say if you get like an unsuccessful, I don't know, if you're not successful in your actions, I'd say Leos. Travel plans might be thwarted if you need to travel around the 17th of October. I mean, if there's a possibility for you not to travel, I would not travel, because you might get really frustrated if you do travel around this time. I don't know, maybe like you get into a little bit of a conflict, a little bit of an argument with someone on the plane, or there's something happening that delays the flight or something like that. If you have to travel, I would get travel insurance, and I would also prepare myself for a change of plans. Let's say. Last but not least, you may feel like you have to defend your world views, maybe your political views, your religious views, your philosophical views publicly. Maybe you feel like you have to speak up. Sometimes not speaking up is likely to be the winning tactic and strategy, especially if you have a lot to lose if you speak up. And as humans, we tend to identify very strongly with our beliefs and with our life philosophy. That doesn't mean that we hold the absolute truth. All truths are but half truths, as they say, and you might not be aware of certain kind of like hidden aspects. Maybe if you have like an open argument with someone, you might not be aware of why the person who you're having an argument with is defending a certain position, let's say. Virgos, Virgo suns, and Virgo risings. 17th of October, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This full moon activates your financial axis, and it is going to square Mars in the 11th house. So I do believe that this full moon is going to put the spotlight on money. Especially money maybe that you owe to others. There is a possibility that you might hear, I don't know, that your interest rate, if you have some sort of like debt towards the bank, if you have a mortgage, your interest rates might go up. It feels like something is really irritating you when it comes to financial matters, especially financial matters that involve another entity, such as the bank, or maybe that involve another entity such as your partner, if you have a partner. Another possibility is that you could fight with a partner over money, and it may be necessary to revisit existing agreements over who pays for what. I would also take a bit of a step back and ask myself, if you are getting angry over a financial matter, have you been clear enough with your partner so that they know what your expectations are? Because if not, there's no point in you getting angry, or there's no point in you kind of like, oh, I don't know, pointing fingers if you haven't expressed your views and your stance and your expectations. A lot of fights happen because of assumptions, especially wrong assumptions. And there is a chance that emotions could kind of like get like really intense, and people could be in this sort of like very inflammatory state. Slow down, take it easy, catch your breath. And if there's anything that you need to address from a financial perspective, I would say maybe wait for the kind of like angry, I don't know, like flare up to pass, and then you can talk about it. This may be also a time when you need to make a significant payment. It could be a payment that you make for someone else. I don't know, let's say you have a partner and they need help with a loan that they need to pay, but you don't seem to necessarily make this payment with a super open heart. It actually seems to prevent you from maybe achieving something that you have set as a goal, as a target. So if that is the case, I do recommend having a conversation over it rather than, I don't know, like huffing and puffing and sulking in a corner. There's also a possibility that you might need to decline potentially like social invitations because of financial reasons, because you have other plans, maybe because you have other financial goals, let's say. Another possibility, if you have a partner, is that they could experience some challenges from a financial perspective, and they could be really kind of like angry and upset, and you might be the one who needs to kind of like step in and calm them down in one way or another, and offer them maybe emotional kind of like support and reassurance. Virgos. Libras, Libra suns and Libra risings. 17th of October, active 3 days before, 3 days after. You've got a full moon activating your house of relationships, but also the 7th house is the house of opposition, of open adversaries. You're going to be challenged. Libras, I'm going to go out there and say it. You're probably going to be challenged quite publicly. There is a possibility that you might be challenged and you might get irritated, and the person who you're being challenged by is like really aggrieved. Where are you likely to get challenged? It could be in a professional setup. I'm just gonna say it. There could be someone at work that is really, I don't know, like displeased with the way that you're doing things, and they act like super kind of like indignant and resentful, and they might give you attitude. You might not really know where the attitude is coming from, because they might not have necessarily been like super open about what's gotten them angry, and you may actually need to. It doesn't feel like this tension is going to go away on its own. You may need to confront them about it, or you may need to be open to some form of a confrontation if they do confront you, and potentially remember. There is one thing that I want you to remember, that maybe this person is just jealous or envious, or maybe this person doesn't feel valued enough by you, because Venus, which is your ruler, is actually in a nice aspect to Mars, which is the ruler of the full moon. So I do believe that if you show them that they're appreciated, if you show them that they matter to you, if you show them that they're valuable to you, you could diffuse the whole conflict. Saying that, it is a very conflictual time. You might have a conflict in the workspace, maybe also a conflict with a significant other. If you're in a relationship, you may even have a conflict with someone that you collaborate with for business purposes. You may have a conflict also potentially with a parent. Now, you're not going to be in an argument or in a conflict with all of these people. Have your pick. Choose one. I know that so many people are going to be displeased with me. It's only fitting that people get I don't know, like irked by all the things that I'm sharing at the time of this full moon, because as I said, it is quite a quite an indignant and irritable full moon. So Libras, you're probably going to have to face someone's frustration and anger. I repeat, you can once again act as the diplomat if you make them feel important and significant, and if you make them feel like their needs and their emotions are valid and that they matter. There is a chance that you may walk away from a relationship. It could be a romantic relationship, but it could also be a business relationship. Now, I know some people, when I talk about breakups, they get really upset. This can be a time of breakups. I'm just going to put it out there. However, there's also a possibility that this might just be the culminating point somehow. So you're not going to experience like a sudden breakup. It might just be the case that things have been building up ever since maybe the spring of this year, March, April, and now they're finally coming to this culminating point. You might also decide to break up with, like I said, someone that you're working with. So that's also a possibility, or someone that you're working with one-to-one, such as a counselor, a consultant, an advisor, a coach, a health practitioner, and so on. Scorpios, Scorpio suns and Scorpio risings. 17th of October, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This one in Aries activates your 6th house, 12th house axis, and it does make a bit of a tense aspect with Mars, which is your chart ruler and the ruler of the 6th house. Now, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of this full moon because there is a possibility that you might experience a culminating point with kind of like heat, maybe fever, inflammation when it comes to your health. So there could be some sort of an inflammatory state that you find yourselves in, Scorpios. Now, I do want you to remember that this is not medical advice. You are completely responsible for your medical and health-related decisions, and I do recommend taking the advice of your doctor, of your physician, above everything else. Saying that, if you've been experiencing potentially any challenges from a health perspective, especially this spring, I'm looking at March, April, there is a chance that these might reach a peak, these might reach a culminating point now, and you might need to act, you might need to do something about it, you might need to also take the decision to act differently when it comes to your health, maybe give up on something that's been like stressing your body out, that's been causing tension, inflammation, Aries and Mars in general, Mars being the ruler of Aries, they are associated also with accidents, incidents, heat, inflammation, stings, cuts, bruises, intense kind of like acute conditions. So slow down. That's my recommendation at this time. Slow down. Don't overwork yourselves. Make sure that you get plenty of rest. And if you need to take a little bit of time off because you're feeling because you're feeling under the weather, I would recommend taking it a little bit of time off. There is a possibility from a work perspective that this is a time when some Scorpios might leave behind a job. You might have had enough from an ideological perspective, from a philosophical perspective. You may no longer agree with the way things are run. There's also a chance that some legal developments, maybe changes in legislation, or developments happening abroad or in connection with foreign lands and foreign countries, there is a chance that these types of developments might impact your day-to-day work. So you might feel like, oh my God, my day-to-day work is going to change. This is it. From now on, I'm going to have to do things differently. Even though you might get potentially like frustrated with this, maybe you're gonna feel the need to like stand up and fight against it and say, no, I don't want these changes. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it out there. Mars, the ruler of the full moon, is in a nice aspect to Neptune. So if you kind of like play it by ear, if you give yourselves permission to be a little bit creative and just kind of like go with the flow, Scorpios, you might end up in a much better place. Now, if you're leaving a job, once again, you might end up in a much better place where you can tap more into your imagination and your creative talents. Last but not least, there is a possibility that you might experience yourselves, or you might do this, you may inadvertently insult someone's views, maybe political, spiritual, religious. You might insult someone's, I don't know, like cultural background. Be very careful, please, Scorpios, what you say, because people can get like really, 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 really angry, and maybe a matter that to you seems minor and trivial could like turn up into a full-blown, I don't know, like visit to the HR. But maybe you need to be the one going to HR and saying, listen, I'm triggered by this, or this person has insulted me. And I'm all for standing up for ourselves. There's also something else that I would recommend doing. Ask yourselves what action is going to result in success for you, Scorpios, because it might not be the number one impulse or instinct, just as an FYI. Sagittarius suns and Sagittarius risings. 17th of October, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This one activates your 5th house, 11th house axis, and it's squaring Mars. Now, a few things. If you don't have kids, this might not be this challenging, this full moon. You might just have a little bit too much fun. You might just overdo it with the fun, and you might end up spending more than you were meant to spend, Sagittarians. And I would be very careful, because maybe it's not worth you having too much fun and getting into debt over it. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, sometimes fun can be very dangerous. I strongly advise against dangerous activities, even though they seem fun on the surface. So if you want to go bungee jumping, please avoid this full moon. Please avoid the 17th of October, also 3 days before and 3 days after. Speed, as fun as it can be, and I'm referring to cars, bikes, and stuff like that. Speed, as fun as it can be, it can also be deadly. I'm not a massive fan of the fact that the ruler of this full moon is in the 8th house for Sagittarius risings, especially, and the 8th house is associated with crisis and transformation, and it's also the house of death and rebirth. So what I'm saying is, slow down, don't overdo it with the dangerous or speed or heat-filled, I don't know, like fun activities. If you have kids, I would keep a very close eye on them, because especially if they're playing sports or games, or generally when they're playing, they could, I don't know, like hurt themselves or like something could fall. So there is a little bit of a chance of accidents, I'd say. And of course, if they're really young, you can't really, I mean, you're obviously going to supervise them all the time, but you can't really like reason with them. If they're a little bit older, I would just maybe prevent them from engaging in any, I don't know, like potentially like physical kind of like activities that could involve like games and play and so on. There's also a possibility that you might learn some sort of a secret connected with your kids. Maybe you learn that they've been hiding something from you, something that they've been doing for fun, and you are probably going to get really angry. And you might, I don't know, like yell at them, or that might be the first impulse. I'm not saying that that's a good thing to do, but that could be the first instinct. I would also take a bit of a step back and ask myself, why are they doing this? What are they trying to escape from? What are they trying to run away from? What are they curious about, rather than getting all kind of like worked up over this thing? And last but not least, this can be a very creative time. I will put it out there. Sagittarians, especially Sagittarius risings, you might be very creatively inspired by something that has annoyed you a great deal, and you seem to be able to channel that frustration into maybe a creative outlet or into a physical outlet, such as, I don't know, like playing tennis, going hiking, or things like that. But again, extra caution when it comes to physical activities, even though they seem fun, even though they seem, I don't know, like super kind of like innocent. Just take it slow. Just take it really, really slow. Capricorn suns and Capricorn risings. 17th of October, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This full moon in Aries activates the 4th house, 10th house axis, which is the private life versus public life axis, home life versus professional life axis. This full moon squares Mars in the 7th house. So you might have a confrontation, you might enter into an argument. I'm not saying that you're the one starting it, you're probably the one that's being pulled into it. I don't believe you're actually the one starting it. I believe it could be someone else starting it. You could enter into some sort of an argument with a parent, a family member, maybe a significant other if you're married. Someone could feel like you've really hurt their feelings, like you're maybe not taking their feelings, their needs, and their emotions into account. They could also have a very intense emotional reaction. Maybe they could start crying or something like that over something that doesn't feel that big to you, but it does look like maybe they have some sort of a wound in connection with this maybe thing that you've like inadvertently put kind of like salt on the wound with. There is a possibility that you realize something has to change at home or in your private life, because it's not working for maybe someone that you're living with. Maybe it's not working for your partner if you are married. You might realize maybe that you need to move to a different home, to a different place. Maybe you need to sell this house. Maybe your partner is unhappy where you live. There's also a possibility that your partner might have news for you, if you are in a relationship especially, maybe news connected with either their parents or their career, and in some shape or form they seem to potentially destabilize a little bit this piece of news or these bits of news. They seem to destabilize potentially the existing home and living situation that you're currently experiencing. It does feel like someone is acting in a very antagonistic way towards you. There is a chance that it's someone from your private life, and somehow it's kind of like deflecting your attention from your professional life. This person seems to like really just need to talk to someone, and they seem to maybe just kind of like be in need of someone that they can vent to. Just hear them out. I think that's the best way to go about this. There is a possibility that some of you could decide to stop working with someone who's been helping you with matters around the house. So if you had someone kind of like giving you a hand around the house, and then this is it, you've decided to maybe, I don't know, like let them go. Some of you may also need to move around this time, or potentially hear news connected with moving or changing your home and living situation. Maybe because your professional life is advancing, and as a result, you might need to relocate. Parents might also have news for you around this time, Capricorns. Now, not all news is good news, but I would not read too much into it, because if a parent comes to you and says, oh, this happened at work, or this is what I'm going through, they could be in a really kind of like intense emotional state, and actually when they calm down and when they like get a minute to catch their breath, you might realize it's not that bad, or it's not that challenging a thing that they're going through. You seem to be a great listener at this time. I've said it once, I'm going to say it again. Aquarius Suns and Aquarius risings. 17th of October, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This moon in Aries activates your 3rd house, 9th house axis, and it squares Mars. Okay, so an argument, a conflict, Aquarius, some sort of an inflammatory kind of like state maybe, that you're likely to experience in connection with a neighbor, a colleague. It could be a work colleague, it could be a colleague from school. You seem to be in disagreement with them, they seem to be in disagreement with you. There is a possibility that you are disagreeing because you have completely different maybe worldviews, life philosophies, belief systems. Maybe because you come from completely different cultural backgrounds. Some sort of intense, inflammatory crisis at work is possible, with some sort of like big, angry words. Someone is cross with you. You might be cross with someone, and you might be very much in the mood to give them a piece of your mind and call things by their name and say, no, like, this is not how things are done. So you're probably going to get angry over something connected with work, and maybe you might get angry with someone. I would remember that sometimes battles are won with not just a great deal of diplomacy, but also by glossing over certain things that make you angry. I would ask myself if this is really worth the fight. You might need to act fast to like solve a problem at work because of maybe something that this person did. However, you, I don't know, like yelling at them is probably not going to change the reality of the situation. Now, there's also a possibility you might experience disruption when it comes to any sort of traveling, short distance traveling, long distance traveling. There is a possibility maybe that you need to like cancel a flight or postpone a trip because duty calls, because work calls, because you have to attend to like urgent professional matters or urgent matters connected with someone's health. Potentially, maybe your health, but it's not mandatory. It could be someone else's health. Maybe someone needs your support. Maybe someone needs you to be there for them. If you were waiting for results connected with an exam or connected with, I don't know, your educational status, the results may not be exactly what you thought they would be. So you might need to have a conversation. Maybe you need to like send emails. I do believe you might need to act fast, but also remember that when you act fast, sometimes mistakes are made. So make sure that if you do reach out and flag, listen, I'm not happy with this result. Make sure that you have gotten your facts right. And last but not least, there is a chance that you might need to repair your preferred mode of transportation, potentially a car. Maybe you need to replace something connected with it. Last but not least, you're learning a lot, possibly connected with your health. And some of these things that you're learning about, they're not really making you happy because they're challenging your existing worldview, your existing belief system, I'd say, when it comes to maybe health. I think it's best to just kind of like accept things when you realize the reality of a situation. And even though, I don't know, maybe you feel like you've been living a lie, it's better to know than to not know. It's better to find out late than never, I suppose. Pisces, Suns and Pisces risings. 17th of October, active. 3 days before, 3 days after. This one activates your financial axis, and it is squaring Mars in your 5th house. I mean, I'm just gonna put it out there. There could be some sort of a conflict, some sort of an argument over money, maybe with a child, maybe with a loved one, maybe it's with your romantic partner. Maybe your kid has spent too much money on, I don't know, some sort of a game or something like that. Or maybe they are getting, if you have kids, maybe they're getting like really irritated because you don't want to give them the money for something that they really want, that they are kind of like really impatient to get, something that they want to buy. So I do see a potential maybe kind of like confrontation over financial matters. You might also be a little bit too quick. You might be in a rush, Pisces, to spend money on a loved one. And sometimes throwing money at a problem works, but not all the time. What this person might actually need, it could be your kid, it could be your romantic partner, it could be, I don't know, it could be someone else. Sometimes people benefit a lot more from you spending time with them, giving them the time of day, hearing them out, offering them like a shoulder that they can rest on. It does feel like the need of this person who is maybe in a little bit of a state, who is maybe like angry or upset. The need is not more money or more stuff or more things. The need is to feel heard and held and important and special, I'd say. Going back to the money side of things, you may need to curb your spending around this time because you could be literally in a rush to get rid of money quickly and to buy fun things, and you're very impatient and you want to get it all now. Slow down. That is my recommendation. You might end up spending money on stuff that you did not need to spend money on. Last but not least, this can be a very good time to like really look at what sort of maybe connections, interactions, relationships, circumstances make you feel, I don't know, like undervalued or underappreciated. maybe what kind of causes a very intense emotional response. And rather than getting annoyed or upset once again, and maybe, I don't know, like sulking in a corner, it could be a good idea maybe to like acknowledge, listen, this is really important to me, and maybe I need to communicate it more, or maybe I need to make things a lot clearer when I talk to people. So it could be a moment of like significant reflection in terms of your self-worth, your self-esteem, your sense of confidence. I'd say. Remember to relax at the time of this full moon, my dear Pisces, because I do feel like you've been a little bit high-strung. And remember that sometimes some of your best ideas come when you are daydreaming and relaxing, and maybe in between kind of like being awake and like half asleep. Folks, that is your full moon update. Let us know in the comments how this full moon plays out for you. I'm very, very curious. And once again, if you want to work with me, you can find me on my website, which is written in the stars-astrology.com. That is written in the stars-astrology.com. It's also in the pinned comment and in the description box. You can also find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @ruxunbelievable, and that is my only handle. So if anyone messages you saying, oh, I'm Rux, I'm like, no. I would not message you asking for random things, and I only have one Instagram account, which is @ruxunbelievable. If my content is interesting, helpful, useful, let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family. And you can also make a donation to my channel by using the thanks button underneath the video. Take it easy, take it slow, folks, at the time of this full moon. And don't forget to have a little bit of fun and to diffuse the tension if you can. I'll leave you to it. Bye.